Welcome back, my friends. Andy Christopher here, aka the D.I.L.F, the dad I listen to frequently, here for our next rendition of the D.I.L.F show. So honestly, my head's kind of all over the place right now. My family is in the Midwest. I thought that it was going to be liberating and wonderful, and I'm not sure if you've experienced this too, but I just feel anxiety, stress, panic that I'm not near them. It's kind of like a Stockholm syndrome. You don't realize what you have until it's not there. And now I just you know that meme of, I think it's from Narcos, the meme where the guy's just looking off vaguely into the distance and it's like three different photos. That's how I feel walking around the house right now. I've cleaned everything. I put stuff away. I'm just reshuffling toys at this point, but I miss my family. I love them so much. They're so great. So um head's a little bit all over the place, but I do have a couple of things I want to address today in regards to how we survived without having family nearby, and kind of pivoting to surviving family holidays and gatherings and get-togethers and things like that. But first and foremost, before I get to the bulk of the content, I was looking at, if you've never visited Answer the Public, it basically just shows you a heat map of what questions are popping up most frequently in your locale or on a specific topic, and it breaks it down by category. And I went in just kind of this week looking for some content fodder, and I saw a question that said something that that just didn't connect with me. How parenting today is different and harder. And I don't know why this particular one got to me so much. I don't obviously know what it was like to be a parent in the 1930s or the 1970s or the 90s or any time before right now. But is parenting really harder now? I feel like the sign of the times is that we want to just create meaning and problems to solve on the fly. And I don't understand how this particular topic is such a searched question right now. The parents Today's parents spend more time and money on their children than previous generations. Is that is that true? Is that relative? I mean, maybe I understand the time thing. I feel, having had Arlo during COVID, yeah, we were part of his life and have been part of his life for a huge percentage. And we only recently started daycare, and we have been very present. The first 2 years of his life, we were practically by his side. But um, we haven't gone through these massive generational shifting events similar to previous times. We didn't have the resources, technology, like we have resources and technology that wasn't had before, that is supposed to make life easier. But I guess in essence, you could look back when it was simpler times and you just had fewer options, less knowledge out there about parenting, or at least less immediate access to knowledge. Everything was just kind of shared, commiseration in regards to having it be difficult to parent your child. But is today's time really any harder than it ever was? I don't think so. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this in regards to, of course, parenting is different, but harder? No way. I don't know. Maybe I'll devote a future podcast to that particular one, because that one, I don't know, that one just, you ever just not get hit right with something, and it just doesn't sink in with you. I don't know, that one just kind of irked me. But getting into the heart of the discussion today. So the closest family we had nearby when we were raising Arlo was back in Los Angeles. And our cousins, Nora, Morgan, Alex, Cassie, they live in Simi Valley, California. And one of the things that we really had to get over ourselves and get over was just that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask people to help take care of your child, and your family wants to do this with grandchildren and with, with your kids. People want to offer help. But when we went through 12, 18, 20 months of not having help nearby, not just having parents drop in, not just having anyone come by to just say hello and stop by and, take little man off our hands, we grew into certain expectations where it's just like, okay, it's kind of taboo. We don't want to impose. If we need someone to take care of him, we likely have to pay someone for it. And we have to vet that person and make sure that they connect with our son and this and that. But your family wants to help. It's just when you don't have access to family, yes, it does fall on your shoulders to pivot your schedules and figure out how is going to be the best mechanism for making sure that not only is the kiddo taken care of, but that the home is taken care of. And not everyone can afford help. Not everyone can afford cleaning services. Not, there are all these different things that could potentially make your life easier that that may, or you may or may not be able to tap into. And I alluded to this one of the maybe an episode or two ago, but our first babysitter, it was a circumstance where we had a younger, teenager, was she a teenager? Maximum in her early 20s. And we went through care.com and, we went through the whole vetting process and all that good stuff. But it was not a great set of circumstances once that kid's problems started coming into our life and what we were trying to do. And then all of a sudden it was like we were taking care of two children, but we were paying this second kid to take care of Arlo. And I hope she's doing well. And it was a whole kind of messy set of circumstances in regards to her personal life, her family life, and it started to affect her work life. And eventually we just had to cut ties and say, look, I'm sorry, this just isn't working out. And you can't be afraid to cut those ties just out of, necessity of having to need someone to be there. But, she came into the house and she played with Arlo. She was very kind, but it just didn't pan out. And then we found the most wonderful person of that, we could possibly imagine. And this person, if you can find someone who is a referral and someone that is already a trusted entity, I would so much recommend that over just starting brand new with care.com or any babysitting, acquisition website, because you then know what you're getting yourselves into. And we met Steph, and she had two children, stay-at-home mom, did this freelance work on the side, and it was just gangbusters. She was so great with Arlo, so influential, helped develop him, taught him sign language, all these wonderful things. And these are all things that I believe people typically experience with their families. When their families come by, you've kind of built up that, grandparents are just going to give them candy and, do all the things that kind of quote unquote get back at when we as children were such menaces. And it's just like, oh, you know what? I can't wait for my time. I'm going to tap in and I'm going to get to do all these things that, they're trying to, break the habit or not start with their kiddo. And I love, and I hope that all grandparents take, abuse that privilege, because it seems like one of the perks of the gig. But we really had to get over that speed bump of, we can't ask our family, we can't impose for 2 days, we can't do this. And with how effective travel is nowadays, and our families in the Midwest and on the East Coast primarily now, just to give you a point of reference. But it did become easier to, once we ripped the Band-Aid off, to travel to Southern California and get that done. We were only an hour flight at that point, but the mental roadblock of, our family probably doesn't want to do this because who wants to deal with a crying baby? Who wants to change a poopy diaper when you haven't changed one in, many, many years? But they get to develop their own bond and their own relationship and put their own stamp on your child's life at a very early point. And I know that many family dynamics are different when you're 2 minutes away or 10 minutes away or 45 minutes away. But when we realized that we could lean on, Nora and Morgan a little bit, and then that just opened up. And obviously when travel bans kind of lifted and we were able to travel to the Midwest and to the East Coast freely, then we got back into it, and we're like, wow, we now want our grandparents and want everyone to see and interact with Arlo, because they didn't get that opportunity early on. And while I do think one of the cool things of COVID was that it created more hands-on, present, and awareness of positive parenting and just being there at the early stages, the biggest detractor was just that we couldn't forge those bonds and those relationships early on. And if you get limited by that in any regard, just know that if you rip the Band-Aid off and you put yourself in the situation where you do want to lean on your family, it's going to be okay. They're going to welcome your child with open arms and not feel burdened. Yeah, they might get tired after a couple of days, sure. I mean, kids are exhausting. That's just the nature of the beast, but you're not imposing upon them. So please do not be afraid to ask for help during that time. Don't be afraid to call. And, I called my mom and just talked about stuff and just kind of vented, and lean on them for answers and support, and for you to just be heard. Kind of a hat tip to the previous episode, but your family wants to be there. And then that kind of pivots into, when during the holidays, your family is then there, and everyone has their different stances on holiday time. And this past one, Julia's family was in town, and it was just so wonderful having them there. But a lot of people look at holidays as a supremely stressful time, when family you haven't seen for a while, you're kind of in forced captivity for 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it might be. And, surviving that or handling that, I think it all comes down to, first and foremost, your perspective going into that particular event. How do you react when your family's around? How are you able to manage your calm in that storm? Because your calm determines your child's calm, and your madness determines your child's madness. I feel like the times I'm the most stressed are the times that Arlo and I just reciprocate. He's just barking at me, and I'm stressed out, and I'm feeling all these things internally. And it's a reciprocal relationship. It's not just, oh man, why is he yelling at me for no reason? There's probably something that I'm putting on him that I might not realize in that moment that's stressing him out, and it's just leading to this back and forth. And that's when you kind of escalate those situations. But with family, with people who know you very intimately, and people who knows, quote unquote, how to kind of push your buttons, you have to continue to keep that calm amidst all that's going on. And I think one of the hardest things about how COVID shifted the modern family dynamic is that when we didn't get to see each other, we didn't get to continue to grow together. We didn't get to evolve and learn. And, speak in person, not just with family, but with anyone. And so they don't really know the person you are on the day to day. Your family doesn't after a certain point. And so once you've gotten through the pleasantries of, rekindling a little bit and getting each other caught up to speed, then it's just you guys day to day. And your family might wake up at, 4:30 in the morning to make coffee, or they might want to sleep in until 10 in the morning and not be bothered. And you don't know that because you've got your routine with the kiddo, whether they're up at 5:30, 6, 7, whatever it is, if you're lucky enough to get to 8, whatever it might be. And then you're injecting different personalities, different routines into the situation. And that's what leads to the butting of heads. That's what leads to the disconnect. It's not that you don't love each other. It's not that you are, looking back at the past or anything. It's your routines that don't jive with one another, and everyone's trying to meet each other in the middle somewhere. And sometimes you'll have a full breakfast plate at 6:45 in the morning, and for myself, sometimes I don't eat until 2 p.m. and it's just, oh, thank you so much. I'm not crazy hungry, but I'm going to eat this. And you're trying to learn on the fly. And with holidays, you've got you've got presents, you've got ceremonies, you've got rituals, you've got things that people want to do and get done or see in your city that you don't really necessarily want to do at that point in time, but people want to take advantage of their vacation. And you've got all these different things, but it's honestly just the routine, like as so simple as when people eat, or when people want to go to sleep, or some people want to wind down and watch movies. And all these things are not simpatico with one another. And I think that's what leads to the stress at holiday times. And then it manifests itself in what we're making for dinner, and who's in the kitchen, who's cleaning, who's not cleaning, and this and that. Oh man, side tangent, I remember this one Christmas where, man, I was just a punk 19-year-old or something like that, and I was just giving my mom such a hard time. And we had an assembly line going for cleaning the dishes, and we had the nice china out. And I can't remember exactly what I was saying to my mom, but then we were talking about me being a wide receiver, and I'm like, oh, like, Mom, it would be so much easier if you just started throwing these plates to me, and I could catch them, and we could keep things moving a lot smoother. She's like, I am not throwing the china. We're not doing this. Don't mess with that. I'm like, Mom, of course you're not going to throw the china. You wouldn't throw the china. You wouldn't do that. Something like, you don't trust me to catch it. I know how you work. I know how you operate. I'm trying to get the laugh or whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden she turns and she just throws a plate. She throws a plate at literally right at my chest. And I'm taken aback. I go, I fumble, plate breaks. Oh shit. And we all look at the plate, and then we look at Mom, and she's like, so it wouldn't be easier, would it, if we did it that way? And I'm just red in the face. I'm stunned at the events that just transpired. And events and things like that happen at the holidays. I feel like some people have the greatest, Clark Griswold-esque holiday stories. Please share with me any holiday stories you have. I'd love to hear them. But that one always sticks with me as just, dude, don't poke the bear. Do not do that to Mama Bear, because she'll snap back at you. She'll get you. And needless to say, I just dried my plates after that, and was thankful that I didn't get any more backlash about the plate breaking. But all families go through this, and I know that when it comes to when it comes to what I was talking about in regards to the routines not meshing, and how that leads to embedded frustrations coming out, that directly affects your child's routine. And then all of a sudden you're pushing the later hours, you're out of sync in terms of getting your kiddo to bed, and it all just starts to add up. Then, parents are missing out on sleep, and it starts to compound with it. But I think one of the most important things to do is to make your expectations known with your family in regards to, okay, here's when nap time comes. Here's usually what we do for snacks. Here's usually what we do for meals. We try to get a veggie on the plate every time. Here's when we do bath time. When it's bath time, we really try to wind things down. Then we kick into yada, yada, yada for bedtime routine. Make your expectations clear. Communicate that to your family. Otherwise, they're going to try to inject their routines as the norm during your time. And then there's video games going on, or there's, late dinners out, whatever it might be that are influencing your particular routine. But trying to get them to assimilate as best as you can to your routine is going to declutter and de-stress your mind, your house a lot easier, and kind of diffuse any potential frustrations that can come from your family being there during that time, I believe. And when you don't make it clear, that's when old habits die hard, and that's when everyone just starts to get antsy and start to feel it after a few days. And when this particular trip in December, when the family was leaving, it was so great because Arlo didn't want them to leave. We were so grateful for everything that they'd done, and the meals that had been cooked, and the cleaning, and so grateful. Nobody wanted anyone to leave at that point, but that doesn't mean that during that particular time that there weren't moments of just like, God, we got to get him to bed. We can't do this at this time, or we can't show him this at this time, because we want to stick to our routine as best as we can. So make the expectation clear out of the gate. Remember, sometimes when we revert to our kid stages with our parents there, you feel the need to kind of be not only at their beck and call, but to just kind of bend to their will. But I'm almost 40 now. I mean, I can, well, hey, I'm not almost 40. I'm 37. I'm going to make that very clear. But I can make my intentions and, communicate my needs just as well as the next person. And it's this weird balance of wanting to play host and wanting to make sure that they enjoy themselves, but also not wanting to step on their toes as like the kid parent dynamic. And, then they're trying to get along with, your kids as their grandparents. And there's a lot of different dynamics at play in one house. So I think you just need to make things clear at the onset about what you need. It seems simple enough, but then trying not to let the little things get to you and push you over the edge, because when it comes to your dynamic with your child, you're already on edge. I mean, we've got a toddler who is fiercely independent and loves having us play with him, and we cherish those moments. But when we're talking about racing and things like that, sometimes it gets tiring, and you're still setting those expectations, and you're already on edge for those reasons, just of your daily habits and your interactions with your child. And when your family is in town, it should make things easier, not harder. And I know in conversations with a lot of different friends that people are they always dread when their family has to come into town. And I think it's just because the dynamics in place, and each side is unwilling to air things out and put a new and evolved spin on an old story, right? So just don't be afraid to speak about that shit, because you'll alleviate a lot of and quell a lot of issues proactively if you just make it known ahead of time. But the wonderful side of it is you get to share those moments and share those presents and different ways of doing things with one another. And I think if you embrace those moments as the evolution of your relationship with your family and with your parents or whoever might be coming into town, you could really forge a lot, like forge not only stronger relationships, but you could also repair a lot of things that you thought might have been irreparable, or someone might present themselves as, a really cool person or outlet or resource that you might have taken for granted for many, many years. And I think you just have to have that openness and willingness to chat and communicate and evolve with that person for, what you're looking for now. Invite them into the person that you are on the day to day, and share with them funny thoughts, feelings that maybe you only reserve for the closest of friends at that point. And they might become your close friends, at that point moving forward. Just don't think you always have to look back to the worst that something was and use that as the starting block for how it's going to be for this particular trip or event or whatever it might be. And now I know, we're trying to plan cabin trips and plan other trips that we wouldn't have normally planned, just because we know how much we love these people and how we can get along together and how everyone can kind of unify and work together to make a cohesive home. We just didn't have that during COVID because of, obvious reasons, but we also just thought that we had to do it on our own, and we don't have to do it on our own in the slightest. The cliche is it takes a village. And I know that, speaking with different families locally, that there's some massive support systems, within different cultures that I'm just like, oh my God, how did you spend that much time together? I don't get it. But at the end of the day, you have to, do your best to maintain your house. And that just means properly setting expectations. Don't want to beat that one up too much more. But I think that family holidays have gotten this rap of being just bad, so to speak, for lack of a better adjective. And people are looking forward to them less and less and less for whatever reasons. And now I'm looking forward to them more and more and more because of what, the last couple holidays and couple times with our family has brought, which have been some of the most wonderful interactions and chats and, smiles on little man's face that I've seen to date. So remember that your mindset going into it is what's going to set the pace for the entire event. And if you go in dreading it, thinking it's going to be the worst, well, guess what? It's going to be the worst. But if you go in with an open mind and go in with minimal expectations, but go in proactively, letting people know what you need, I bet you it's going to be a lot better than, than the first mindset if you go in like that. So what are your thoughts here? Let me know those stories on family holidays. Would love to hear the good along with the horror stories. Shoot me an email, thedilfshow@gmail.com. Interact on our socials at thedilfshow. And just let me know your thoughts. Let me know what other topics you want to hear about. What are you searching most on, Google or Bing, or what's a really outdated one? Was Netscape? Was that ever a search engine? What are you Netscaping these days to, to put your mind at ease about parenting, or what questions are you asking? Let's air those out here and keep this thing growing and evolving each and every week. So Andy Christopher, the DILF, signing off. I love you, and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. Go have a great one.